Lesson 3.1, Video 1. We're going to talk about relations in this unit and talk about how x's and y's are related and also come up with some other terminology. So first of all, let's review something we already know. A set of ordered pairs, for example, x, y, all right, which could be called, anything like 3 and 2, and we've seen lots of these. This is an ordered pair, and it also is called a relationship or a relation. And when I say relation, it means that when we have an XY table that we create, with respect to this coordinate, if I plug in a 3, I'm going to get out a 2. That's basically what it's saying. So if I gave you an equation that said y equals x minus 1, that's what you would do right here. You would take the x value, plug it in, subtract 1, and you get your y value. This is a relationship. Now, some terminologies that go with this are independent, dependent, domain, and range. And those are the ones we're going to focus on. Now, this is not really, these are new words, no doubt, but they're really words for things we've already discussed. So, for example, independent, right here, is a variable in a relationship or a relation with a value that is subject to choice. In other words, if I give you an XY table and I say to plug in the numbers -3, -2, -1, 0, etc., we can choose the numbers we want to plug into X. I could say plug in 1, 2, 3, and 4. But because we have a choice, that makes it the independent variable, and it's usually the x value. On the other side of it, the dependent variable is what you get out of it, and usually that's the y. So on this table, if I had you plug in a -3 and you plugged it into an equation that I don't have there, but if I plugged in a -3, and let's say you got a 4 out, 4 was created by plugging in a -3. So 4 is dependent, the y value is dependent on what you plug in for x. So if you plugged in a -2, let's say I got a 3. Or if I plugged in a -1, I get a 2. If I plugged in a 0, I get a 1. So what is your y value? You would say, well, it depends on what x value you plugged in, which makes it dependent. Now, domain and range are, again, new words, but referring to the same thing. So, but domain refers to what am I allowed to plug in, and are there any limitations? So the domain is still the x values, and the range is still the y values. But we're talking in much broader terms. So when you say domain, you're saying what are all the possibilities that I could plug in, and the range would be then what are all the possibilities I could get out. Whereas independent and dependent values are just saying, are being more specific and saying what you're plugging in. Now, if I made a table for you, a good table that I feel would work would be this. We're very familiar with an XY table. So let's also remember that if I use different vocabulary, the x is the independent variable and the y is the dependent variable, and also the x is the domain and the y is the range. So different words to describe things that we've already used. And this ends 3.1 video 1.